stops eating dinner to save on candles. Every kopeck, every penny, he saves with an almost religious devotion.
The overcoat ceases to be an object and becomes a life project, his only dream.
And then, after months of deprivation, the big day arrives.
The moment when his life finally seems to be turning around.
He puts on his brand new overcoat. And this is where the story becomes incredible. Because for the first time in his life Akeki is seen.
Suddenly he exists for others.
Exactly. The garment gives him a visibility, a respect that he has never known before. His companions, the same ones who played cruel jokes on him, now approach him. They congratulate him, admire the fabric. It's so incredible what's happening that they even throw him a little party to celebrate his new cape. For one night, just one, Akaki feels a happiness he didn't even know existed.
He feels like he's finally part of something. He's one of them.
The cape isn't just a coat.
No, it's a social passport. It's material proof that he deserves to exist in the eyes of others. It's literally bought him an identity.
And this whole 19th century thing we're talking about sounds terribly modern, doesn't it? Absolutely. The idea that a consumer object can give you the status that society denies you. It's spot on. It's the story of designer sneakers, the latest cell phone. Google already saw it.
But of course, in his world, happiness lasts a moment.
Always. Tragedy is always waiting around the corner, and he arrives on his way home from that party, alone across a dark, deserted square. Two men assault him.
And steal his treasure, his new cape. They disappear into the night.
And with the cape goes everything. His identity, his effort, his brief moment of glory. He is literally left naked before the world once again. And from here on his fight is no longer against the cold. It is against something much worse. Against indifference.
Exactly.
He tries to seek help. He goes to the police, but he hits a wall. An absurd wall of bureaucracy, of disinterest.
Of course, he is a nobody who has lost his coat. Who is going to care?
His desperation leads him, as a last resort, to request an audience with an important person, a high-ranking general.
And this scene is incredibly psychologically cruel.
The general, who at that moment has a friend visiting, decides to use poor Akaki to show off his own authority.
It is a gratuitous and terrible display of power. He not only helps him, he humiliates him. He
humiliates him by shouting at him. He gives him a monumental scolding for having bypassed the hierarchy, for not having followed the regulatory procedure. He
scorns him with
such fury that Akaki leaves there almost without being aware of what is happening, terrified. He staggers through the icy streets and arrives home to collapse with a fever.
That his life was worth absolutely nothing to those in power. Confirmation that for the system he is nothing more than an annoying insect. Exactly.
And his end is as silent as his life. He dies a few days later alone and forgotten. The next day, his job as a copyist is already taken by someone else.
End of story.
Or not, because here Google does something that completely threw me off the first time I read it. The story turns fantastic. Yes, suddenly rumors start to spread through St. Petersburg. There's a ghost with the appearance of an official who appears at night and rips the coats off passers-by without caring about their rank.
A total plot twist that goes from the most crude realism to the supernatural. The story culminates, of course, when this ghost comes face to face with the important person, the general who humiliated Akaki.
The specter steals his very expensive coat and with a fright seems to teach him a lesson in humility through pure terror.
After that encounter, Akaki's ghost is never seen again, and we are left with a general deeply affected, forever transformed by that encounter, perhaps feeling something similar to compassion for the first time. An ending that is brilliant. Although I have to admit that the ending with the ghost threw me off a little the first time. The story was so realistic and suddenly, boom, a specter.
Of course, doesn't.
Google run the risk of this seeming like a cheap trick, of undermining the seriousness of the social criticism it has built?
It's a great question because it's the natural reaction, but I think if you think about it, it's quite the opposite. It's the key to everything.
Look.
The real world, the world of laws and bureaucracy, has completely failed Akaki. There's no justice for him in life, right? So Google has to resort to the supernatural to give it to them. The ghost is not a trick. It is the only possible form of justice in an unjust world. In other words, it is poetic justice. Exactly. A justice that operates above the laws of men.
It is the manifestation of social conscience, one that finally forces the powerful to feel, even through fear, the pain of the insignificant. And this brings us directly to Dostoevsky's famous phrase. Of course, what Google did, and that was a bombshell at the time, was to put the little man, the anonymous guy crushed by the system, center stage and turn him into a tragic hero.
It gave him a voice. It gave a voice and emotional depth to someone that society refused to look at. So, beyond the plot, the big criticism is against this dehumanization of the system, right? Goebel paints a hierarchical, suffocating society, where your value as a person is determined by your rank.
Exactly. And for his bosses, Akaki is not a human being with a personal tragedy. He is a replaceable piece, a number in a file.
And within that criticism is the issue of the cape as a fetish, which we have already discussed a bit.
It is fascinating. Google is ahead of Marx in all criticism of consumerism. The cape ceases to be an object and is devoid of meanings. It is dignity. It is dignity. It is acceptance. It is a shield against the indifference of the world. Losing it is not losing a possession. It
Is losing the only proof he had of his own existence. It is becoming invisible again.
is the loss of hope, which is much worse.
While you were talking about that cruelty, a phrase came to mind that, although it is not said as such, sums it all up. That idea of, I am your brother, can we delve deeper into that?
Of course, it comes from a very powerful scene. At the beginning, when his colleagues make fun of him, a young civil servant is horrified, and amidst the laughter he hears Kaki whisper to himself, "Leave me alone. Why are you offending me?"
Quote, and Google tells us that in that sentence the young civil servant heard something else. I am your brother. There it is. Therein lies the ethical heart of the whole story. It is Google's reminder that beneath the uniforms and the ranks we are all part of the same humanity and have a moral responsibility towards each other.
Especially the weakest, of course.
And the system is designed precisely to make you forget that, to make you see the other as inferior, as a formality, not as a brother. It is devastating.
Absolutely. There's another sentence that I think defines Akaki's psychology, his inner world, very well. Akakivich gave himself to the task with a kind of love. That sentence is wonderful because it tells us that in a world that gives him absolutely nothing, neither friendship, nor recognition, nor love, he is able to find a refuge.
A meaning.
A purpose to his existence in something as absurd as copying letters. It shows us the incredible human capacity to find a purpose, a small beauty, even in the most oppressive circumstances.
His love for calligraphy is the only thing that is truly his.
The only thing that the system has not been able to take away from him until he needs the overcoat, and that small world also falls apart. And this brings me to the third sentence that returns us to the harshness of the setting. In St. Petersburg, the enemy of everyone who receives a salary of 400 rubles is our north wind. Here Google is a master of metaphor because that north wind is much more than the weather.
Of course.
It is the symbol of all the invisible and implacable forces that hit the poor. It is not just the cold of nature. It is the cold of economic precariousness.
It is the hostility of a society that does not protect you.
That leaves you out in the elements in the literal and figurative sense. So that is it, the icy wind of indifference. What is incredible is like a story, written in 1842. It can feel so current. It
Forces us to think.
About how many contemporary Akakis we ignore every day. Its
Relevance is terrifying. Think about the people who do the invisible but essential jobs that make everything work.
the delivery people, the cleaning staff.
the workers in the platform economy, people we often treat as if they were part of the urban furniture.
Yes, their longing, like Akakis, is not for great luxuries. It is for a minimum of warmth, whether physical or human, a little recognition, dignity.
And it also connects us with that fragility, doesn't it? With the universal fear of losing everything and with that very human tendency to cling to objects, to material symbols. Of course, to build an identity that we feel the world does not give us on its own. That is why, in the end, the real tragedy of the story is not the theft of the cape. No, that is just the trigger. The real tragedy is living in a world where a person's cry for help is silenced by the arrogance of a position, by the rigidity of a form.
Or worse, by simple and comfortable indifference.
The cape is a powerful wake-up call to practice what we could call radical empathy.
So, deep down, the message is that a person's dignity should never, ever depend on what they have or the position they hold. Never. And that looking the other way when someone vulnerable suffers is a moral failing that no hierarchy or bureaucratic excuse can justify. You.
Couldn't say, sure, indifference is the real villain in this story.
And with that powerful reflection that leaves us a little touched, we are approaching the end. I would like to throw out one last idea for those who are listening.
Go ahead.
If the cape gave Akaki a visible identity for the first time, an existence in the eyes of others, what modern capes do we use to feel that we exist?
Good question. It could be a position at work, the number of followers on social media, a clothing brand, a car, and what happens when life or pure chance suddenly snatches them away from us? What is left of us? So, a thought-provoking question.